Hello and welcome. Happy to have you here. Happy to be sharing with you today and every day. And I appreciate your presence and receiving. Thank you for your likes and thank you so much for subscribing. Lets me know that you're resonating and gives me a sense of who I'm connecting with. So super grateful for that. So thank you for being here. This is a redo. I tried to do a little editing on my video for the elemental journey, and my novice skills somehow I didn't get it right. So here I am, and I am here to share about the relationship and cultivating our inner balance and harmony, as well as outer balance and harmony through the elemental wisdom. So when we're talking about the elemental wisdom, we're talking about the wisdom of air, fire, water, earth, and space. They actually have different finger correspondence, but we'll go into that in the 5-week journey. So we're going to be doing a 5-week journey, developing our relationships, our deeper understanding with energy, right? What really composes our energetics and the energetics of the natural world. The primary composition is made up then of these elements. The elements are not just, what would I say? They aren't just operating, I don't know the word. So let's just say they are conscious beings, right? It's not just happenstance. They carry a consciousness, they carry a high intelligence, they carry wisdom. They carry perfection in their orchestration and in their dance with one another, and in their dance to create life. Historically, both primarily mythically, as well as in ancient times, the dragons were what was thought of as the elements. And the dragons are largely a feminine force that birth all of life. We can see the dragons represented going all the way back to ancient times, the most ancient times, in many cave carvings, represented in different scriptures, represented in, in myths and fairy tales. And, China has, and Japan, I think it is, Asia in general, has a very deep and long, ancient connection with the dragon power and the serpent energy. Now, this does not necessarily mean that we're talking about the dark forces. We're talking about regenerative forces. We're talking about not from the lens of, maybe more Western religion, but instead we're talking about a deeper primordial and cosmic understanding of beings that carry high levels of consciousness on other dimensional realms of reality. For our purposes, we're going to be exploring both the magical but the practical of what does that mean to really be in relationship, to why is it important to know our elemental composition, where we're at in our states of balance or imbalance, and why and how does this affect our mental, our emotional, our physical, and our spiritual. So part of the foundation of this 5 weeks is going to be oriented through specific mapping systems that will probably already be familiar to you, such as the chakra system, Ayurveda, the 4 directions, working with the holistic template of mind, body, emotion, spirit. We're also going to be bringing in some of the teachings of biomancy from Biomancy University. You can look that up, founded by Dr. Ozra Bertrand. And I have been studying his work for the last, I guess, 3 years now, and then did a year immersion in one of his courses 2 years ago, I think. So that's going to really enter us into the magical realm. So part of why I think that this is super important at this time has to do with the fact that I don't have to tell anybody, our world is highly unstable. And this is part of the evolutionary process. You can think for a moment that everything is created first within the space element, within energy, within the quantum realm or the void. Everything begins first there and then drops down through layers of physicality. And the elements represent, in part, that step down process. And when everything falls apart, it also falls apart from the energetics first. One way that this becomes very clear is if you've ever been with anybody while they're dying. You know, I worked with elders and hospice and sat bedside for off and on for many years. And one of the consistent things that you see when someone is actually going through that transition, it's an elemental process. So the breath weakens and changes. The bladder and the bowels release. The organs slowly stop functioning. And you know, so these are all the elements that are decompressing from the body, and they compose our life force. So as that transition happens, in the final stages, then we go back to that space, or our soul, everything leaves the body, and that can be a very palpable experience if you're sensitized to when the soul leaves the body. After you've watched all of those elements, those physical elements, then it goes back into its full energetic, big, oftentimes big, palpable expression. So this is what's happening on our planet right now. We have old systems that have already broken down in the energetic, and they're slowly breaking down through the physical. This happens emotionally, this happens mentally, this happens spiritually, it happens individually, it happens collectively. This is all part of the larger picture of the dismantling, the decompressing, and the falling away of old levels of consciousness. So when we're working with the elements, when we come into relationship with the elements, when we start to understand how they present to us individually and personally, how we manage them, right? How we work with them, how we learn from them. And then we can navigate the external even more harmoniously. So so the levels that we're going to work with is we're going to begin to delve into each element and the larger system in our physicality and physiology, biology, that our elements govern. So we're going to start to spend a week with each of these and learning and attuning to and communing with each element and allowing them to be our ally, to guide us, to show us how do we come into this deeper sense of balance, and then how do we meet those elements in the world itself, in nature, in individuals that are also expressing different elemental presences within them. And so each week we're going to explore this. We're going to separate it so that we can go a little bit, deeper and more intimate with each, because we want to remember these are living beings. They constitute the wisdom of life force. They govern our organs, right? They know how to support that. They govern life, the cycles, the seasons, the cosmos, right? So there's a deep wisdom that we want to tap into and become students of on very personal levels. And then we're going to expand into the magic realms. And when I say the magic realms, I mean the recognition that our physical human beings and bodies are actually portals to higher dimensional realities that take us to our divinity, or that download our divinity. And these are going to have very different elemental compositions than what we know of and how we're composed in just our physical plane. So it's going to be this process of opening the heart, coming into that place of devotion and love and romancing and courting these beautiful life-giving forces, coming into a deep, prayerful, and active relationship with them, and harmonizing all of it with the highest wisdom of the divine, right? Of God, of source love, of, all of nature, all that is, whatever and however that resonates for you. And as we do this, what ends up happening is we begin to recognize that by coming into a relationship with the elementals, they are beings that really start to usher us into more attuned and clear multidimensional realities. And there are ways in which their alchemy continues to assist in our upgrading and our refining so that we can hold higher frequencies. Most of the time, however, this needs to be done consciously, right? For efficiency, it needs to be done consciously. For more ease and grace, it needs to be done consciously. And when we can understand the very basic foundations of the intelligences that are working through us, we can then begin to work with them. So there's a way, and I touched on this in the last video, and actually it was part of what I was trying to edit, simply because I wasn't really clear when I was talking about it. But one of the ways in which we can begin to look at activating, oh my goodness, more of this magical realm is that, or higher dimensional realities, is when we look at the let's say the Native Americans and indigenous peoples who work with weather, right? Who work with, like, through the rain dance to call forth more rain. When we read in the Bible that Jesus walked on water, right? He was a master of the elements. So my particular take on this is that the mastering, when we use that term, the human ego tends to want to have power over things. It makes us feel secure. It makes us feel safe. It gives us a sense of power. We tend to look at the world as very materialistic and that we are the doers. But if we're not plugged in and really connected to the divine workings, our mastery from a perspective of control, right, is short-lived. I believe mastery is a co-creation with that which is higher intelligence than us. That is based on an intelligence that is love, that is peace, that intrinsically creates harmony and balance. And then we come into a relationship with that force, with that intelligence, with the divine presence. And we work together. And that the mastery is really us learning how to know when and how to surrender to a higher good, to a higher truth. And then within that, we commune and work in harmony with those forces. So when Jesus walked on water, if you take that literally, I believe that, he was in harmony. He was in a deep, intimate relationship with all of creation that aligned him and enabled him based on his inner frequencies, his inner alchemy, his inner devotion that allowed all of life and nature to reveal a higher truth. So I think that's beautiful. I think that's magical, and I believe this is where we are going. And I'm going to talk about one more magical piece here as well. And that's the history of the dragons in, in folklore and in fairy tale. And usually what we see is usually the four elements represented. We don't see the fifth element represented a lot, which is, the The fifth element is space. It's the quantum. It's the void. It's where everything is both simultaneously present and uncreated yet. Potential, right? So we usually see an earth dragon, a water dragon, a fire dragon, and an air dragon. And they're in their respective parts of the world, right? They're in their caves. They're flying through the air, right? They're using their fire, and usually they're always protecting some big chest of jewels and treasure. So they're represented as being, scary and fierce, but I believe that they're fiercely protecting from the uninitiated the jewels, which are the secrets of life, and they hold the power of each of those elements. They are the birther of that element, and only they know how is the right alchemical mixture, and only they know those who are initiated at the highest levels, and we can look at that as Jesus, right? Or perhaps even the rain dancers, because they're working with reverence in alignment with Source. So this is kind of the magical realm that we're going to be working through. And we're going to be using very specific practices from biomancy and the teachings of biomancy, which are called biodelics. I'm not going to go into all of that right now, but it's a way of expanding our consciousness while being grounded in our body that allows us to come into this next dimension more easily, naturally, organically, because we are naturally portals and biodelic beings. So that's the magical realm. The very practical realm that we're going to work with is, and I'll just break this down into like a quick each element description. So, and if you already watched the other video, you're going to see a lot of this is the same. So the air element, right? I personally, my constitution is very much air and fire. So I tend to be very animated. I tend to be very quick. I tend to have a lot of passion and inspiration, and my movements tend to be quickened. Now, the more imbalanced I am, the more that goes, right? The quicker and the bigger that all of that is. So that's the air and fire. And we could say in Ayurveda that is Vata Pitta. So the opposite end of that spectrum is the water and the earth. And I'm just going to kind of put them together. We're going to tease them all apart in the journey. But so if you tend to have more lethargy, more depression, more knowing that you should be more active, but activity tends to be more slow for you. You tend to process things more slowly. Depression might be that imbalanced place for you, whereas anxiety might be the air place. Those are more water and earth expressions, right? They're a little heavier. They're more grounded. And then we have the fire element. The fire element is that which is highly passionate, has a lot of intensity, in its imbalance, can get angry really fast and easily, can have a lot of impatience. When you think of road rage, That might be an extreme pitta or fire imbalance where that ignition is very fast. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this person has to be a rageful person. It just means they have excess fire that is not balanced. So what we're going to be working with is each of these separately, simultaneously weaving the understanding based on our own personal experience. What is the right elemental alchemy for you? And how do you learn to sustain that so that when you're out in the world, you're operating from your own empowerment of inner peace and inner balance and true aligned expression. So we're not flung around by everything outside of us. Now, we're a very imbalanced, naturally imbalanced culture because our culture's paradigms and ways of thought forms and beliefs have been highly imbalanced. So when we're working in a practical level, we're going to learn to understand what are the emotions and the thought forms and the belief systems and how are they landed in my body's memory? How is my programming rooted within specific elemental expressions? And then we're going to use the biomantic journeys to support recalibration, to support knowing more deeply who we are in our true balanced orientation. The mapping systems of the chakras and the 4 directions, we're not going to focus necessarily on those, but we're going to use them as templates, as needed. And the same with Ayurveda. This isn't going to be about any of those, but we're going to use them as support to orient ourselves to different phases and stages of our journey as we move through the 5 weeks. I think that is the majority of that. So what is the journey, right? When is it? So the journey begins February 1st for 5 weeks through March 1st. It's going to be every Saturday at 12 noon Central Time. Probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. Replays will be available if you have to leave early or if you want to have the replay if you aren't able to attend and then you want to, go back over that class. So those will be made available. You're going to have smaller teaching videos scattered throughout the 5 weeks because what I'm recognizing as I'm putting this together is there's just so much that I want to give you both the informational content and deeper experiential content so that you get a really full direct download that you can move forward with and really utilize to support, harmonize, and empower your day-to-day life. We're going to work with different spirit allies. That might be animal totems. That might be plant essences. For me, one of my go-tos are trees. And I have a very, intimate relationship with 3 trees in particular. And wow, they give me so much support. And for that support, right, we have a reciprocal relationship. And we're moving into unity consciousness. We're moving into a relational paradigm where harmony and balance supports coherence and unification. And that is also based on the experiences of reciprocity. So we're going to be doing and journeying with those beautiful allies. And then we're also you're going to have different practices and exercises that will be separate videos that will just be those that you can return to as you need. Eventually, you'll probably learn them by heart and find your way, right, of dancing with the elements, both within nature and within your own being. But you will have those to put into your library as well. So that's going to be the primary bulk. And who knows, there may be other things that come up in the interim. With this, you're also going to learn that the elements have names so that we can personalize our relationship with them. The elements have sound. So light language will be intrinsic throughout our time together because they will share their energetics, their specific frequencies of light codes and elemental codes with you. So if this interests you, if you're curious about it, you can look below in the description box. I'm going to have a link down there that will take you to the offering page in the website, on my website, lotuslindley.net. And at the bottom, you can scroll down and it will give you the payment links. And it's going to give you more details and some of the things that we're going to be, other things that we're going to be focusing on. So that will be there. When you register, would you also make sure that you send me an email, and you can do that through the contact in my website, letting me know if I don't know you personally, your name and your correct email, so that I'm sending everything to you properly. Registration, you don't have to have your registration in by the new moon, which is Wednesday, but it would be greatly appreciated because I want to send out your opening introductory links for the Zoom link and any opening email with new information and preliminary preparatory things for you. So if you could have that registered by next Wednesday, that would be wonderful. It's not absolutely necessary, but that would be ideal. And if you have any questions, then please just feel free to email me directly. You can do that through my website. It's also listed. My email is in the description box below. I think that's it. So I hope to be journeying with you soon. I will most likely be sharing a little bit more here as well on YouTube. And I did just make a very fun post earlier on Facebook that gives a little bit more magical info, and I might repeat some of that here in another video. But yeah, so I hope to see you soon. And with that, have a magical rest of your day. Have a beautiful, filled day. Much love and many blessings.